Hello everyone, welcome to Camp's Country Breakdown for the UK. My name is David, I'm 19 years old, and I'm a first year mechanical engineering student at Imperial College, London. Today I'm going to talk about a few different things relating to going to university in the United Kingdom. First, I want to share my experience with the education system in the UK, along with some application advice for those of you who are interested in applying. Second, I want to discuss some elements that you should be considering, mostly non-academic, before you decide to live and study in the UK. And lastly, I want to share my experience in transitioning to a different country and provide some insight into what life will be like both in and out of the lecture. So first, what makes the UK so special? What makes their universities unique? What do they offer? And what are they expecting? UK universities are known for being faster and more focused on specialization than universities in other countries. Nearly all undergraduate courses last for only 3 years compared to 4 years, say in the US. And for a lot of STEM courses like mine, you can do a 4-year course with a master's degree integrated. Of course, the drawback is you don't have a whole lot of freedom to change or choose classes once you've decided to study there. Now, this does vary per university, but generally, you will be taught what you applied for. And it's quite difficult to swap courses, which, even though is possible, might mean you have to start again from first year. However, because these universities focus deeply on a particular course, their methods of teaching and their research and development are very well developed. Their infrastructure is built really well. As an engineering students, we have numerous lab environments which are very similar to those in industry, and the work we create is designed to model professional work. In my case, for STEM courses, you kind of really get to see, you get to experience, and you sort of get what you pay for. So your next question is probably, how do I write my application so that it has an edge against the rest? My first bit of advice would be obviously to apply to similar courses, and the more specific you are about what you want to study, the better. When I applied, I only applied to mechanical engineering courses. And if you were in my situation, you might have applied to different types of engineering courses, say electrical, chemical, maybe computing. However, you don't want to have a large amount of variety between your course selections because you only have one personal statement that you can write. So the more diverse your selections, the more shallow your statement will have to be, because you'll have to target each and every one of those courses in one statement. Speaking about your statement, this should reflect your interest in the course. If you've done any relevant extracurricular activities, summer camps, or if you've done any research, this is where you write about them. Discuss the skills you've developed during these endeavors, and emphasize the link between how these activities indicate your curiosity to learn more about that field of study. You'll be studying the same thing non-stop for 3 to 4 years. Universities want to make sure that you have the confidence to stick through it instead of potentially wanting to change courses or drop out. At the end of the day, however, your opportunities are primarily determined by your predicted grades. So I suppose the last tip I have with regards to your grades, to apply ASAP, apply as early as possible. Universities will be slightly more lenient at the beginning of the application period because there are still several spots to fill. As the spaces dwindle down, the slots get more and more competitive, and so universities will want to be considering those who have higher grades later into the application period. Of course, life at university isn't all about this studying, and so I want to share some key factors that you should be considering before you apply. As I've said already, academically, the most important factor is your course. Are you sure about whatever it is that you want to study? If you are, great. If the answer is no, or you're not quite sure, or maybe you need a bit of time, by all means, go ahead and apply. But I would recommend thinking about it really carefully and making sure your answer is yes before you accept any offers. Of course, you need to consider the location, and the location determines a lot of things. It determines weather, your level of convenience, living costs, demographics. I live in London, and London, for example, has pretty much one of the highest living costs in the whole of the UK. However, it's a very convenient place to live in. Public transport is great, you can get around very easily, and your entertainment options are nearly endless. Also, it's where most of the international students go. So if you want to study in London, expect to have a more diverse group of course mates and dorm mates compared to areas rather, further up north, where the suppose demographic is more confined. One last important thing you should think about is your contacts. Of course, one of the beauties of living abroad is that you're able to meet new people, but you might feel more comfortable if you have friends or family who are already living in that area, and it's great to have that to fall back on in case you go through a tough time or you really struggle. Next, I'm going to talk a bit more about what life was like transitioning, what you should expect, what are the struggles, but also what are the greatest benefits of moving abroad. So I would say the biggest struggle of studying abroad is having to be independent and responsible. You will be all alone at the start. You'll be doing all your chores, buying all your groceries. You might have to commute to school on a daily basis, prepare your own meals every day. And you'll need to figure out a lot of things, like how to access public services, like healthcare through the NHS. How are you going to access your finances, banking? And sooner or later, some of you are going to have to search for housing options. The greatest upside to that is that everyone else, every freshman at university, is pretty much in the same situation that you are. And hopefully your experience is the same as mine. And you sort of realize that a lot of them are really excited to meet new people. These first few weeks are your greatest opportunity to find new friends, both to study, share experiences with, and struggle with. And along with that, of course, you have an incredible sense of freedom. You can go where you want, do what you want, when you want. If you want to go somewhere, it could just be a bus or subway stop away. And of course, in addition to that, universities are filled to the brim with societies. Or clubs. Societies are clubs for you to join and enjoy. For me, I played a lot. I wanted to play Ultimate Frisbee for the longest time. It was quite a niche sport. When I went to university, it turns out there was already quite a big one. There's cultural societies for nearly every nationality. You're Filipino, you're Chinese, Singaporean. I'm part of the Chinese society. And if you want to learn a skill, like you want to cook, or oddly enough, if you want to find some people to play mahjong with, there are societies for that. And so it's a wonderful opportunity for you to explore your interests and broaden your horizons. At the end of the day, your experience at university is what you will make of it. By traveling to the UK, you'll be exposed to countless opportunities, and if you can manage your time and effort, as well as enjoy whatever it is you plan to do, it'll be one of the greatest decisions you can ever make. On that note, thank you to Camp for inviting me to be a speaker. Follow Camp on Facebook and on Instagram at camp_ph. Check out their website, campphilippines.org, and be sure to check out our other talks or interact with one of our online panels later on. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ian, and I am a current second-year student at the University of Melbourne, studying a Bachelor of Music, specializing in classical voice. So I will talk about today the education and application system, as well as my experience transitioning to Melbourne from the Philippines. I first learned about the University of Melbourne back in 8th grade when a person from the university visited my school. And I really enjoyed thinking about, moving to Melbourne and studying. And I was able to experience that firsthand through a summer school program that the residential college or dorm that I'm staying in holds every break, winter or summer break, called the Young Leaders Program. So through this summer school, I really found that I really liked living in Melbourne, and I really enjoyed the system they had here, as the entire bachelor degree only fits in 3 years, so you don't have to spend a 4th year. And regarding monetary fees, it equates to about a 4-year degree in the US, or slightly cheaper due to it only being 3 years. We also start in February and March and end in November, December. And I found that after graduating, I really needed a break from studying, so I found that having this half-year compromise between a gap year and having no break was really good for me and my mental health. The University of Melbourne also offers international scholarships, and a lot of that information can be found on their website. Certain scholarships are also available for residential colleges. I'm at Trinity College, and it's sort of a place you can stay, a place that provides food, and a place that provides an atmosphere where you live with other people studying at universities in Melbourne. Regarding the focus of your education, UniMelb focuses on your degree specifically, with 3 subjects being a core every semester, while 1 subject being a breadth subject that you have to take outside of your degree. For example, if I'm studying science, 3 subjects would be physics, chemistry, and biology, and the 4th subject could be music psychology. Regarding the bachelor, you would specialize in your second year, so going back to the science example, you would take that general 3 science course in your first year, and for your second year you would probably specialize in certain electives such as medicine or immuno or physio. Now, I personally decided to come to Melbourne because I really enjoyed the atmosphere and the culture that I received when I first came to Melbourne and visited many years ago. There was a lot of theater, there was a lot of musicals, there was also a lot of artwork around the city, and I felt that that was really welcoming for me, who I'm an artist, and it was such a welcoming atmosphere, and I really enjoyed it, and it's also rated one of the top cities to live in. I also decided to apply for Australia because you only need your IB score from high school. And you are guaranteed an entry if you meet a certain threshold of IB score. So I was already guaranteed an entry with the IB score that I reached. And you will know your IB score as you apply for after you graduate already. There are no other requirements other than your scores. And I know other forms are accepted as well, such as GCSEs, but I'm very glad that I didn't have to write an essay or a statement or take the SATs or anything, and that just made graduating much easier for me and going through the IB program without external stress factors much easier for me. I mentally prepared for moving to Melbourne by really spending my gap half year relaxing and preparing myself for university. I just spent it teaching others. I'm tutoring for IB as well as learning more music and learning musicals, and overall I felt very, very confident that moving to Melbourne would be easy and exciting. When I moved to Melbourne, I really felt the welcoming atmosphere again, and this was my first time away from home, and I really loved how I was received by my peers here and my friends. Academically, it was a very easy transition as IB prepared at least half of what I learned in my first year. The only difference I would note is that there's no more 8-hour per day lesson like school. My total contact hours, which are the hours that I have to go to uni and show up, if I show up, is 15 hours per week. So I'm left with a lot more free time. And I've decided to fill that free time with my extracurriculars, such as producing musicals, or acting, or singing, or playing the piano. And I really enjoy doing that, as I did that back in high school, so I was able to pull that still into university, which I really enjoyed doing. And I think that also helped me settle in a lot more, easier, because I managed to form my routine again and keep what I used to love doing, what I do now. My advice for choosing the country that you're applying to would be to think ahead and plan your future. Do you want to live in the country? Do you want to go back and work in the country? Or stuff like that should be factors in your decision. Things such as studying law in, for example, a Commonwealth country like Britain or Australia or Canada, but wanting to practice law at places in the US, doesn't really equate very well, and you should think about what you want to do in the future before you start your journey. I personally only applied for the University of Melbourne, as I was guaranteed an entry for one of the sciences or arts or commerce. However, in music, I had to also include a audition, so I also auditioned for music. That's the only additional factor regarding applying for UniMelb. For the fine arts and music, you have to have a folio of your work. I also really recommend applying to Australia, as you don't have to worry about the personal essay writing and anything and joining clubs, as it just makes the stress load much easier on you. Regarding culture shock and having a new education, I find that managing your routine really well will help tons when you move abroad. And homesickness you can alleviate in Melbourne, just because there's so much different food here. There is Filipino restaurants that I do go to, and it's good here. The whole experience in choosing a country to apply to, I would say, is a really difficult question, because you have to find the country that fits you. And I found that Melbourne, the city particularly, really called to me, as some of my friends moved here as well to study in UniMelb, and I was able to still keep in touch with them and talk to them regularly. And all in all, I really hope that you guys will consider applying to Australia and UniMelb, as I really didn't have any stress applying to a university, just because I already had a guaranteed place because of your IB score or your GCSE score. And so the stress was less, transitioning was less. It is the most livable city, and all in all, a great place to be.
Hi everyone, my name is Rihanna, and for this presentation I'll be talking about what it's like to be studying in the United States. So I would like to come at this from the perspective of a student and talk more about my experiences living there. I know it is trying times for all of us, and I thank you for joining this month-long conference, and I also applaud the team for their hard work. So just for a quick overview on how this presentation will go is I'll be talking about 5 things. The first one would be about the US education system. Next would be about academic and non-academic factors that made me finally end up choosing to study in the United States. Then the current US rankings of the universities there, the US application system, and finally the transition and how I was able to adjust. So a little bit about me is that I am a rising junior at the University of California, Berkeley, and I am an architect major. I am part of 2 clubs, one being an Asian interest sorority and another being a fashion-based club. And a little story that I like to tell everyone is that I actually was supposed to study in the United Kingdom in King's College, but I got off the wait list to Berkeley, and I decided to go there as a last-minute decision. So first, I'll be talking about the US education system. There are 4 factors that I'd like to talk about. The first one being about flexibility, and I think this is the one that attracts a lot of people to the United States, and that means you are able to switch majors really easily. Most students declare their major at the end of their sophomore year, and I know of some people who declare it like midway into their junior year, so it really just depends on them. The next would be holistic learning, and I really do like this approach because I came in to Berkeley wanting to pursue business and media studies, and it is because of this approach that I was able to find architecture. So you are encouraged and required to take classes that are outside of your major, outside of your interests, and explore things like philosophy, biological sciences, physical sciences, art, history, and like a lot more. Then would be class structure, and there are 2 specific types that I know a lot of US schools do. The first one being lectures, and these are the things that you see in movies. So they're 400 to 500 person lectures, all 400 to 500 person lectures, all packed into one auditorium, and you listen to a professor and what they have to say. The next type of class would be discussions, and these are much smaller, probably like 15 to 20 people, and you get to know each other more like on an in-person, you get to know each other more on a very like personal level, and they are taught not by professors but by teachers' assistants, and they are normally graduate students. And then the third is not a type of class, but it is an option available to you if you need extra help or would like to get to know your teachers, and those are office hours. And in my personal experience, they have really helped me excel at the classes I've been taking. And then lastly, about attendance and grading. So some classes require attendance and others don't. And then in terms of grading, it's really just up to the professor. It is very class-based and professor-based. And what I learned about studying in the United States is that these professors are really passionate about what they do, and they've been teaching for years, and each of them has come up with a system on how they want to grade, be it, being a bell curve or seeing your progress throughout the semester or the quarter. So in terms of choosing the school I wanted to attend and the country I wanted to go to, I had to consider a lot of factors, and I'm going to be breaking them down into academic and non-academic factors. So in terms of academic factors, the first one would be my major and what I wanted to pursue, because I know that there are different countries and different schools that excel in some fields rather than others. So for example, Berkeley is really known for engineering, and you always hear the phrase Harvard Law, so it really just depends. The next would be job opportunities. So this is something that my dad really told me to consider and think about. And there are a lot of limitations that you do have if you are an international student, but nonetheless, you'll find that people there are hungry for work, and normally universities do have a lot of resources to help you get the internships you want and even like the part-time jobs that you'll get while you're there for your 4 years of college. The next would be university rankings, and I know this shouldn't really play much into what I consider, but going off to college abroad is not something to look over, and it is costly, and you would like to get your money's worth. Next would be public versus private schools, and again, I think this kind of pertains more to US residents, because if you are in a public school, they're a lot cheaper than private schools. So I'm going into this with the mind of a Filipino student, and I think you'll see that even though it's not very noticeable to us right now, that there are a few differences in the culture of public versus private. And then in terms of non-academic factors, the first one would be culture. I'll be talking more about this later on, but American culture is very different from Filipino culture, and that's something that you just have to take in mind. The next is proximity to family and friends. From here to California, it's a 15-hour flight away. One thing that really pushed me to studying in the United States is also because I have family there, and my mom has a few friends there too. So there's always someone there who's nearer than my parents to take care of me. Next would be the weather, and I know this is something that's quite trivial and you wouldn't really think about it, but I can tell you that the weather really does change your mood, and if you're not used to it, you will get kind of sad. And I did very much experience that firsthand. And then lastly, I put here the college experience versus the real world. And I said before that I was choosing between the United States and the UK. And I would say that the United States does have that feel of the college experience. So I would like you to take a look at this picture. This is UC Berkeley, and for me, the college experience is studying in a campus setting and being surrounded by all these buildings and this greenery. Dorm living and knowing what that's like, going to football games, going to parties, not that much though, as well as also learning the American culture of holidays like spring break and Thanksgiving. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So very quickly, I just like to share with you the current US university rankings. This is a list that I got from the QS University World Rankings, or their Instagram is Top Unis, and you'll see here that a lot of these schools you've probably heard of. I just want to stress, and I can't stress enough, that these rankings do not determine your future or how successful you are. But I guess it is just very interesting to see. With that said, here are the current world rankings. And I would just like to share with you that 4 out of the 10 are actually not from the United States. And there's an image that, all the top universities are in the United States. And yeah, that may be true for now. We don't know if it is. And if that is true, the world is changing and there are many great schools all over the world. Moving on, next is the US application system. And I know that there will be presentations about this and they will go more in depth. So here is just a little bit about it. If you look at these 3 pictures, these are some systems where you can apply to universities. And the very top one, the common application, is the one that is most well known and one that most US universities are under. So this is what the page of a US common app looks like, and here are the things that you'll need. So deadlines, application fees, the personal essay, courses and grades, test policies, what your extracurriculars are, your portfolio if you're an art or music student, writing supplements, and recommendations. And I would like to touch on only a few of these things. So the first one would be the dreaded personal essay, and this was and still is a struggle for many people. I think the biggest advice I can give to you is to write your story, and that sounds very daunting. So my advice would just to really dig deep and look into who you are and try to think of anecdotes that were really critical in your life. So these college admissions officers want to see who you are and how you are distinct from other people. And then a quick note on standardized testing. So I'm pretty sure you guys all have heard of the SATs and the ACTs. What I know is that they don't put as much weight if you are an international student as opposed to being a US student. So they do take into consideration the curriculum that you have learned under. So I just want to say, don't stress and don't worry too much. I'm not proud of this, but I do like to tell people that I got into Berkeley with a 29 out of 36 on my ACT, when most schools are looking for 30 and above. So it is not impossible, and there are other factors that they will consider. So in terms of the transition, I'll be talking about my experiences with culture shock, homesickness, and finally adjusting. In terms of culture shock, there are 4 things that I'd like to touch on. The first one being freedom, and this is not specific to the United States, but this is when you can basically do anything you want because you're away from your family, but you do really feel like a fish out of water. And there's a lot of responsibilities, so cooking, cleaning, laundry, budgeting, that's a big one. But not a lot of people tell you until they really experience it about what it's like to be alone. I remember, eating in dining halls by myself, and that does sound pretty sad. But looking back, it was actually very nice to learn how to be with myself. The next is something I'd like to call the race. And it's about job opportunities and being competitive. I have heard of people creating startups in their freshman year and landing full-time jobs even before they graduated, and it's really hard to not compare yourself to them. But at the same time, it's super motivational, and there are many resources definitely from the universities, and you will get opportunities for internships and even for part-time jobs. And it's really common to have part-time jobs as well. Something that I really struggled with was this idea of Asian Americans, and I compared myself a lot to Filipino Americans. I compared Filipino Americans to Filipinos here, and that's something that hindered me from actually enjoying my college experience. And instead, I would compare myself to them instead of actually just learning from them. What's great about the United States and what's unique about them is that there are a mixture of cultures, and there's a lot of people that you can learn from. So yeah, and something that's also really nice being, Pinoy is that when I am abroad, I really do take pride in being Filipina, and I didn't know that until I actually went to Berkeley and was like, yeah, I'm from the Philippines, I'm from Manila, ask me anything about it, we have the best mangoes, stuff like that. Next is social responsibility. I think, again, this kind of changes depending on which school you attend, but for the most part, it's not just again, specific to the United States, but it is very much alive and present. So normally, when people go abroad, it's because they think that there are better opportunities to be more successful. And while that is true, we are taught not only in our social settings, and it's embedded in classes to think about social responsibility. So now more than ever, we actually really do need it, and we think about things like climate change, inequality, race and discrimination, even housing, that's a big problem. And I didn't think that I would be as passionate as I would now compared to before. Then in terms of homesickness, I would say that it will happen, and it depends on how close you are to your family. For some people, they get homesick right away. For others, it's, after a while. For me, I was very, super homesick in the spring semester of my freshman year. And I called my parents and my family every day. So yeah, you will get over it. It just does happen. And I guess it's just really important to stay connected. But the thing that actually helped me really battle homesickness the most was finally letting go and finally being able to adjust. So here are 3 things that I learned and that I would like to share with you. The first one is being selfish. And I know that does sound really mean and rude, but this is something an upperclassman told me. If you do go to a university in the United States, there are so many clubs and really specific ones. There are just a lot. And in my freshman year, I joined 4 clubs and I dropped all of them because I didn't feel like it was my best fit. And it was just the matter of constantly looking. And at the end of the day, you really will find the community that's best for you. The next is, being able to embrace change. And as cheesy as this sounds, I had my best experiences with people who I never even thought I would be friends with. And then lastly, I think this is the most important thing that I learned, and it is the thing that really pushed me to stop being homesick and get out of this slump that I was experiencing in my freshman year. And that is to enroll in classes that I really enjoyed. Again, like I said, I switched from business and media studies from that track to architecture. And it is because of those classes that made my experience in the United States all the more enjoyable. So I guess I would just like to leave off with a quote from one of my favorite children's books from Dr. Seuss, and I think it's really fitting, especially during this time. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to camp and follow them on social media. I had a really great time making this presentation for you, and I wish you all the best with college admissions, and just trust the process and you will get into a school that is best fit for you. Bye!
Hi everyone, my name is Julianne Wong. I'm in my 2nd year of biotechnology and economics at the University of Waterloo, and today I will be discussing the application process to Ontario schools, my personal experience studying there, and some general advice when transitioning into a completely new environment. So first I'll discuss the application process just to get it over with. So I had my mind set on studying in Canada in my 2nd year of high school. Then come 3rd year, I started doing more in-depth research on specific programs in schools that I wanted to apply to. But in general, things to consider when looking at schools abroad are definitely budget, distance from home, amenities, and school reputation. Because I was already a citizen, the university prices in Canada were pretty much comparable to schools here, and I found that their program options were more suited to what I wanted to pursue. So for Ontario schools, all applications go through the OUAC. Here you'll be able to rank the different programs and universities you want to apply to and apply directly through this portal. You'll also be able to pay for any applications here and receive offers and alternative offers and be able to accept or reject them. So each program actually has specific admission requirements, which can get pretty confusing if researching at the last minute. So I would suggest looking into this 6 to 12 months in advance just in case you would need to take any supplemental courses or tests. If you do not have the IB option in your school, any lacking requirements can be filled by either taking an external AP course on it or taking an equivalent SAT subject test. I would suggest emailing the admissions office before doing any of this, just to ask what their preferred method of completing this requirement is. A lot of programs also have like a supplemental application form, which usually have 3 to 5 short essay questions and maybe a short video interview as well. And these will all be completed on the school's individual portal. So all applications are due in February and results come out late April to early May. I recently got my results, I think, late April. Yeah. I've also attached other important dates, but if they don't give you the deck, all these can be found on the OUAC website. So next I'll be talking about my personal experience in Waterloo, starting with academics. So my program is biotechnology and economics. It's a double major program in the science and business category. So this is a 5-year program in the science faculty in which 2 years are work experience fulfilled through co-op. So my courses mainly focus on bio, chem, and econ, and we also have the science and business workshops, which allow you to really apply the concepts that you learn in the classroom. So for example, we do a lot of market research, we do pitches, we consult for real startups, and I found that these were the skills that I actually use the most in the workplace. Other than that, we have student-run program societies, which have resources to help you excel in your program academically or in your job search. So here we have my schedule, which I think is pretty standard. So I have 5 to 7 courses per semester. All are specialized, we don't take any general courses. So as you can see here, I think I have 1 chem course, I have 2 econ courses, 1 bio course, and my science and business workshop. So each course usually has 3 hours per week, in which this could be a 3-hour lecture, a 3-hour lab, 3 1-hour lectures, a lecture and a tutorial. Yeah, it really depends on the course, but more or less 3 hours per week. So the amount of readings and homework also depend on the class, but I found that many classes don't have short quizzes, they just have midterms and finals. However, workshops, tutorials, and labs are more hands-on and hence will have weekly assessments. Next, I'll be talking about the co-op program in Waterloo, which is actually one of the reasons I chose this course and this school specifically. So applying for jobs is all done through Waterloo Works, which is the job portal specifically for Waterloo students. So Waterloo has affiliations with, I don't know how many, hundreds of companies in the US, Canada, internationally, and they post any co-op openings on this portal in which you can directly apply. So you just upload your resume, your cover letter, and the school will handle sending out your transcripts and previous work reviews. Through here, the companies are able to schedule the interviews, which are done either on campus or online, and they also are able to send you an offer directly or rank you. Then the process goes, they send you an offer and rank you, and then you rank the companies back, and Waterloo will be the one to match you with your company. So this portal also has additional resources such as co-op supervisors, career advisors, and etc. I just finished my first co-op term, which was in January to April of this year, where I worked at Hubba, a tech startup in Toronto, as the customer support and success specialist. So this was a full-time job in which I mainly dealt with client concerns, but we also did a lot of data reports. We did tagging systems for whatever tickets we had, and we also made marketing decks for projects. Tagging systems for whatever tickets we had, and we also made marketing decks for projects. So I found that this was a great way to gain experience in the field you would like to work in the future, and I also appreciated how I can try out different companies, I can try out different roles and see what really suit me best. Waterloo also has a very prestigious co-op reputation both in Canada and the States, so employers aren't afraid to assign more hands-on and more meaningful work, which I found was very evident in my last workplace. So lastly, I'll be talking about general tips and advice to transitioning to life abroad. So first, I would say try to break out of your shell. So this could be through joining extracurriculars, through talking to the person next to you in lectures, but I found that this is the way that I made the most friends. This is the way that I made like meaningful connections with people. So personally, through my extracurriculars, which were the rowing team, as the marketing executive, I don't row, and through volunteering for orientation and welcome week, and even just joining like the events that were happening on my residence floors, that's how I got to make most of the friends that I still keep in touch with now. Next, don't be afraid to ask for help. I don't know if it was a me thing or if it was a Manila thing, but I was always very ask for help in high school. I thought people had more important things to do, but I found that once you actually ask, like once you get out there and ask, people are always more than willing to help. So I'd say that a lot of the things I've accomplished today wouldn't have been possible without my friends, without mentors in place. So it's really important to be able to recognize when you're struggling with something, when you need help with something, and seeking resources to help fix that. So third, try to make an effort to stay in touch with your friends and family. For the first few months of moving abroad, it could be really intimidating just because you're in a completely new environment, new culture, you don't know anyone there, and you can start to feel really lonely and homesick. But I found that once I made a schedule on how to keep in touch with my friends and family, it got a lot easier. Lastly, try to embrace change and the discomfort that comes with it. So I'd say that a lot of the most impactful changes I made in my life were the ones that I wasn't sure about. So if it scares you, it's probably doing the right thing. I know that it's very intimidating trying to go for these big schools abroad, but there's nothing wrong with trying. Like if you get in, that's so great. But if not, then you don't. You don't lose anything by trying. So I'd say always go for it, even if you're unsure. That is it for my talk today. Thank you all for listening. I hope you got a few insights from this, and if they do attach any of my contact information, please feel free to reach out. Bye, and good luck with applications.
Hi, my name is Nicole. I'm 20 years old and I'm currently studying at the National University of Singapore, taking business administration. Today I will be providing a brief introduction to studying in Singapore, and I will be covering Singapore's education system, why I personally chose to study in Singapore, the application system, and lastly how I found the transition to university life in Singapore. So in Singapore, you enter uni under your respective faculty or course. In business at NUS, you enter business administration not having chosen your major or specialization. And so you spend the first 2 years or so taking core classes, or what we call modules or mods. These core mods should give you a general idea of what you would like to specialize in later on. However, this may differ depending on which faculty you're in. Furthermore, the majority of the classes that you take directly pertain to your course. However, you might have unrestricted modules, meaning that you can take classes from any faculty. Additionally, it is vital to note that you will be graded on a bell curve, which may or may not work in your favor. Moreover, in your first year, you will be given the opportunity to convert a number of your classes into satisfactory or unsatisfactory grade. This will allow freshmen to focus less on their academic grades in their first year, subsequently making it easier for them to adapt and to assimilate to their new environment. Moving on, the way the classes are structured partially depends on your course. Generally, you will have 2-hour lectures accompanied by an hour of tutorials per week for each mod. During lectures, the professor usually goes through the content. Additionally, you might be given reading to do before the lecture, and so you'll be expected to be relatively familiar with the material. The The number of people in a lecture can vary greatly, anywhere from 100 to 400 people. Tutorials, on the other hand, are smaller classes that usually encompass approximately 25 students, where the tutor covers the homework, reinforces previously learned concepts, and answers questions. Other class structures include seminars and labs. Seminars usually involve a class of approximately 50 people and tend to be more discussion-based. And if you take more science-based classes, it's likely that you'll also have labs in addition to lectures and tutorials. Regarding assignments, you will usually have weekly assignments which may involve group work. Additionally, presentations and reports are quite common as well. However, unlike the US and the UK, you generally won't be assigned to complete essays, which I initially found very surprising. Moreover, something that greatly differed from my high school experience is its emphasis on class participation. However, this again varies depending on which institution you go to in Singapore. At NUS Business, class participation can account for up to 30% of your final grade, and due to this, the class environment can become quite competitive at times. So why did I choose to study in Singapore? Although I'm originally from the Philippines, my family moved to Singapore when I was 7, and thus I spent most of my life living and growing up in Singapore. Because of this, I always had studying in Singapore in mind. When the college application period came around, I ended up applying to schools in the UK, Canada, Hong Kong, and Singapore, and decided to go to Singapore. This is for numerous reasons, the most prominent being Singapore itself. Singapore is an incredibly safe country. According to the EIU index, Singapore is ranked as the second safest city in the world. Having traditional overprotective parents, safety was an important factor to take into consideration. Unlike the Philippines, here in Singapore I can take public transport, go out alone, and I can walk alone at night without having to worry about whether or not I'll be able to get home safely. Moreover, one of the things that I love about Singapore is public transportation. Being someone who has an extremely poor sense of direction, the MRT, in comparison to trains in other countries, is extremely easy to follow. The Singapore MRT map is very straightforward, and as long as you know which stop you want to go to, the journey is pretty uncomplicated. Another factor that I appreciated was the close proximity of Singapore to Manila. Going out to uni was my first time fully living alone, and there were definitely times when I felt lonely and missed my family and the Philippines. In the middle of the semester, there's usually a week break before midterms start, and in my first semester, I used this break to visit the Philippines for a week. I definitely wouldn't be able to do this if I were studying in the US and UK because of the distance and the travel time involved. Lastly, a factor that propelled me to study in Singapore were the potential opportunities that this would provide me with. There are career fairs and workshops available for all students that market potential job and internship opportunities. Furthermore, all first-year business students at NUS are required to take a class called Career Creation Startup Workshops, where you are taught how to put together your resume, how to network at networking events, how to brand and market yourself, and more. Additionally, there are numerous exchange opportunities that most students go on in their second or third year. This gives you the opportunity to study in different countries around the world. However, the slots for exchange programs are quite competitive, and priority is determined by your GPA, or what we call CAP, which is out of a 5-point scale. So the higher your CAP is, the more likely you'll be able to go on the exchange program of your choice. On another note, there's a wide variety of activities on campus that you can join, ranging from cheerleading to photography society. There's usually an activities fair at the start of the academic year, and sign-ups are typically done online. It's important to note that if you were to reside on campus, depending on your residency of choice, you might be forced to be more engaged in activities. There's a point system, and in order to accumulate points, you must be engaged in multiple activities. These points determine whether or not you'll be able to continue residing on campus, and as such, the more points you accumulate, the more likely you'll be able to continue living on campus over the subsequent years. Compared to the application process in other countries such as the US and the UK, applying to Singapore is much easier in comparison. The application process usually involves an essay or two that pertains to the course that you wish to study. Additionally, you can apply using your IB results or your high school diploma. It should be noted that some faculties will also require an interview or a test. Additionally, most unis in Singapore allow you to rank your course references. So for instance, your first choice might be medicine, and your second choice might be biology. And so if you don't get accepted to your first choice, you might be accepted to your second or third. Additionally, pertaining to the IB people, you only find out whether or not you're accepted when you get your final IB results. It's vital to note that Singapore schools do not provide conditional offers. My advice is to ensure that you pay for the deposit to other schools outside of Singapore as a backup plan. Additionally, the most important factor in your application is your grades. Regardless of how good your extracurriculars or your essays are, it's unlikely for individuals to be accepted if their grades are not good. At NUS specifically, from what I've observed, the grades that you need depend on which faculty is your first choice. I was really excited to move to Singapore. I think it's extremely important to have an open mind when you move to a new place, especially if you're moving to a country that you're not familiar with. The academic transition, in my opinion, was quite difficult. In high school, classes were small, with definitely less than 20 people per class, and I had the same teachers over the span of 2 years, which made it really easy to ask for help when necessary. And although the IB was difficult, what I liked was that you had multiple opportunities to improve, and overall 2 years to master everything you had to know for the final exams. When I started at uni, however, the classes were huge. Getting to know your professor isn't common. And for core classes, the bell curve had a tendency to be extremely harsh, making it difficult to score well. Additionally, I found the amount of group work that we had to do overwhelming. This is despite the amount of work assigned being very doable, considering the amount of free time that you're given in comparison to high school. However, I'm personally more accustomed and I prefer doing individual work. Last semester, I was assigned a group for all of my classes, and all assignments were to be completed as a group. I found this really frustrating at times, and there were definitely instances when I found that the distribution of work between groupmates to be quite unfair. In order to adapt to this, I realized that everyone has their own work ethic, and as such, people might do things differently from you. Thus, it's important to be flexible. If you're working with people and their standard of work isn't at your preferred level, you can either talk to them about it or you can always go back and improve the work. On the other hand, I found it relatively easy to adapt to the culture in Singapore. Singapore's culture, in my opinion, is an amalgamation of different cultures, overall promoting an immensely diverse society where people are relatively open-minded. However, one factor that people might find difficult to deal with upon first moving here is Singlish. If you don't know what Singlish is, it's defined as a variety of English spoken in Singapore, incorporating elements of Chinese and Malay. Given that the majority of individuals studying in Singapore are Singaporean, it's pretty common to find people speaking Singlish. Also, similar to the way people in the Philippines speak a mix of English and Filipino, Singaporeans do the same, except with English and Chinese. This might be difficult to understand at first, but most people definitely adapt with time and exposure. Overall, my final piece of advice regarding applying to different countries would be to put the most effort into applications in the country or countries that you want to and can envision yourself living in. We have now come to the end of this presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to follow Camp on social media. Thanks, bye.